we have this session called The World of Voiceovers in Advertising. Now, all of you know that advertising is a very big segment of the voice industry, or advertising is also very special, is also called a ruthless place for voiceover artists. And there is a reason why it is called the mad world of advertising. So we'll get to know about all this. We'll get to understand the stories behind the journey of these panelists that we have.
It's a privilege, it's a pleasure, it's an honor to have today, being the first day of India Voice Fest, to be along with you guys together on this panel and have this really empowering discussion that we're about to begin. Because any one of you who's watching right now who is ready to step into the voiceover world, or who's already getting their feet wet in the advertising world and wants a little more guidance, a little more light to be thrown on your path forward, you are in the right place. Because with these guys in this room, I'm going to ask some really powerful questions, and the answers are going to reveal some really brilliant ways for you to rise up in this industry. So, guys, are we ready to shine?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much. I think the first thing I want to say is this: age irrelevant. Matlab, you look at the industry, right? The age kind of is just dropping. Yeah, so age honestly has nothing to do with talent. Yeah, we all started off pretty young. At least the three of us did. Like, Varun is like, I'm not sure. But the truth is, age irrelevant. When you're doing good work and you get recognized, it's needless to say कि वो जो तुम्हारी position है वो तुम कायम कर लेते हो. When you've got the talent and you've got the gift. And I believe that the world is actually filled with many such people. And with your guidance right now, with the answers that you guys give, they're gonna have a lot more ability to see through. Because if you realize, for us, because we've grown up in the industry, like I've been doing this since I was 16, I've been doing child artist, Prasan, you've been ever since you were a child. So we are kind of marinated in the industry. But for an outsider, the world looks very different, right? So I think I want to crack open today's session with a very important question, which is, what are the unique challenges that you feel either you may have faced as a voiceover artist or seen a voiceover artist face in the industry? Neha, why don't you take the lead on this one?
So unique challenges, the thing that I can think of at the back of my head is, as an artist, you never know what you're entering the studio for. Prachi, you know what I'm saying? When we go for a session, we don't know what we're called for. You'd roughly know how much time you're going to spend in the studio, so you schedule your work like that. But every day is a surprise, so you don't know what to be prepared for. So in that case, you have to be prepared with everything, right? So whatever is given to you, of course, the people who call you roughly know what your scope of delivery is, but they are also surprising themselves. You're also surprising yourself every day at work. So you never know what you're called to perform, right? You could be playing, I as a 30-year-old could be playing a 50-year-old, I could be playing a 10-year-old, and I just have to walk into the studio with a well-prepared mind. Not necessarily a well-prepared voice, but a well-prepared mind. So that, I think, is a challenge, because when you're going without preparation, it's just about being very strong internally and then hitting it with all your conviction, because you never know what you're going to do in the studio. So
yeah, I completely resonate with this so much. Because it's like that now. You walk into a job and suddenly they threw, you have to sing and do a voiceover. It's like scatting, or suddenly it's an accented character. And as exciting as it is, you're very right. We need to be prepared for it. Like, take your whole arsenal with you.
Exactly. Yeah, like you go for a job thinking it's going to be like a rap, and then suddenly they'll be like, oh no, maybe we should add a melody to it, and you're like, oops. So or suddenly, hey, can we try an accent over here? And what accent? So not like we're very well versed with accents. You pull it off just on the spot. So you're just experimenting with your voice, and everyone's there, everyone's with you, everyone's supportive, everyone's experimenting with you. It's not like we have a teacher there on the other side and someone's,
Correct.
but it's just about having a lot of conviction and coming just with a very wholesome mind is what I think is one of the biggest challenges.
I
Coming with all
absolutely
the
agree.
positive energy every day and taking it on. That is
I
difficult and it's achievable.
Absolutely. See, I mean, we've lasted in the industry for donkey's years, right? I mean,
Correct.
somewhere or the other, we have surprised ourselves too. And thanks to
Exactly.
producers and filmmakers like these guys right here, they put us on the mic
Exactly.
because they've got this space that, these guys can come up with what we are just, they're putting us through the grind. And then on the other side of it, magic has happened because the whole team has worked together. So beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that. Farzan, what's your perspective on this? What would you say has
Um,
been the
I think I'll take a step back. And when you said, especially that there are people who are newcomers who don't know anyone in the industry, I think it's the biggest challenge to first find out where to send. First of all, some people don't even know that they need samples that they should send out maybe to some people to kind of market themselves. Even if they have a few, they don't know who to approach, who to go to, who to speak to. So I think that's a really difficult thing. And unless you find some really nice voiceover artists who have been around, who are so nice that they will help you and not see you as competition, who are secure enough to see you and be sweet to you, unless you find those people, it's very difficult. So I would give this advice: if you're a man, go to probably a woman who will help you out, because you're no competition to her. You can't do the same voices, and you probably, and vice versa, and try to get your help from there. But I think it's very, very difficult now. I will not deny it, and hats off to those who are trying every day. I have young cousins also who are trying, and it's a process. They've asked me for help. I've helped them out, but it's not like, oh, work starts flowing in every day as soon as you join. So it's a long process. It's one with a lot of patience. You need a lot of patience, including what Sneha just said. Right. You could lose your patience with the producer or a director in the studio because you're like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, and but patience is the key. So that would be my little advice.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. In fact, to add to what you say, what I've realized is since I've been little, and the industry has evolved a lot. It
Yeah.
has changed so much. जो पहले था 30 साल पहले आज नहीं है.
नहीं,
You
नहीं.
know. So there's just one thing, although that has remained constant for me, is that जिस पे तुम्हारा नाम लिखा है ना वो तुम्हारे ही पास आएगा.
जी जी
I
जी.
always believe, and this always works. Like, I always believe that, hey, even if there are five girls, right, and there are like very meaty characters, ek hath dusra there's a meaty character, but everything else is like ek line, aadha line, and you're thinking like, oh, I want that chunky role, I want that big role, and I want, you wanna put your talent to
Yeah.
use, but
Yeah.
I know for a fact that what is yours, it just comes to you, man.
Yeah.
So I think it's beautiful that you're giving such practical advice that you're telling people that just be wary of किसके help मांग रहे हो. Because
Yeah.
because I can understand जिनका industry में माँ बाप नहीं है कोई, for them it's a little difficult to get the
Yes.
foot into the door. And
Absolutely.
if the person you're approaching for help is not being genuinely helpful, so problem ही हो जाएगी.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, because that's a very different perspective to have. Thank you for adding.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Up on where you left off about demos and showreels. Varun, I want to ask you this question. As a producer, as a studio owner, you've seen a whole range of voiceovers in the advertising industry. Okay, and there are some people whose showreel comes to you and you think, hey, you know what, I think this person can pull this off, and you call them. Sometimes it genuinely so happens that they are on the mic and you're like, this is not working. Hello? Yeah, that happens
I
sometimes.
mean, we
Yeah,
because we're in
but
the digital age. I mean, we know what we can do post production. We know where we can take the voice, whether it's recorded in a car or bedroom, or and make it sound like a finished product. Um,
uh,
but in terms of reels, I think trying to give the best accurate representation of your actual voice with that
exactly.
brief in mind, of course, like keeping the brief in mind, like don't go and take your voice like 3 semitones higher or lower if you want to make it sound deeper and then send it as a reel, which a lot of people end up
Exactly.
doing, because when you come on mic you're going to be found out, and then it's just going to be to your disadvantage next time going forward. um, I think something else to keep in mind with reels is a lot of times we get, somebody will send me, suddenly I've got like a burst of 20 WhatsApp messages and they've sent me like 20 different video files, and They're like, hey, this is my reel. And because we maintain a database at the studio, right? So because a lot of producers ask us for fresh voices, new voices, and we try to categorize them into based on tone or genre and that sort of stuff. But if somebody sends me 20 videos, there's no way I can categorize it, or there's no way I can put it into a database. It's a lot of manual labor.
Correct.
So a simple suggestion would be to maybe at the very least have a YouTube playlist. You could even bifurcate your own reel with character voices, with announcer voices or product section voiceovers, and you could have a lot of times you know the brief before you enter the studio. Like the producer is going to say like, we need a husky voice, or we need an announcer kind of voice. Maybe you could categorize your reel in those sections, in those genres beforehand. So it sort of makes it easier for a producer or a director, and they're like, hey, yeah, this is amazing, this person's already so organized, let's just get them into the studio. And it's
Yeah.
those small things that sometimes make a producer choose one voice over the other. Like, it's
I
just
agree.
Absolutely.
as simple as that.
Yeah, because I mean, see, first of all, time. That's the most precious
Absolutely.
source
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you're working with.
yeah,
And probably what they don't realize as new voiceovers or upcoming voices that, oh, this guy really doesn't want with work. So
yeah.
even if that 1.5 minute, if you save for him, that is going to turn things around. Because
Absolutely.
if he can simply just read that heading that this is newsreader voiceover,
Yeah,
am I looking for this right now? And that is a huge
yeah,
leap. So I completely agree. And it can be so overwhelming to have so much of data, to have so many samples. And then you can't even remember, I mean, who was the guy? The guy 3 days ago who sent us that, what was his
yeah,
name? And this is what happens, right? Yeah, so I mean, coming from you, I think very, very, these are golden bits of
yeah.
advice, especially guys who are just getting into the industry. Another thing I want to ask you, Varun, is what do you think gets a producer to notice a voiceover artist? Because here's what's happening, right? Especially when you're doing regular characters, bhabi hai, husband hai, wife hai, ya neighbor hai, jo bhi hai, right? So they are like regular people talking regular stuff, and your work doesn't really stand out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So unless you're doing something exceptional, so what would you recommend as a brand new voiceover artist? What will get them noticed?
Like, it's so funny you mentioned that. It's the voiceover industry is so unknown that like the normal person doesn't know that this is an actual industry. They don't know that this is a viable career path. They don't know how much a voiceover can actually earn, and you can have a legit career and a very profitable career path in this industry. When I actually signed the lease for the studio 3-4 years ago, I remember when I met my landlord for the first time, I was like, man, you should do voiceovers. Like, I was in this industry for like whatever 9 years, 10 years. And my first reaction was, you have a lovely voice. So it's just that, working in that on a day-to-day basis. So just keeping that in mind for a couple of freshers, just stick to the basics. Don't like try and oversell yourself. If your voice is good, it's gonna be like, people are gonna like it. In terms of like trying to be found out, I think having good people skills is more important than actually than anything. Because if you have a
That's
great
a big one.
yeah, if
Yeah,
you have a
please
great
repeat that. That's a big one. Yeah, repeat that. Please repeat that. Yeah, that's a big one.
yeah, people skills. You have a great voice and you come to the studio, but you just put the director off. He's never going to call you again.
Yeah,
He's going to ask you to take 100 takes of the same thing. And
I
if
see.
you show annoyance, or if you show like, if you yeah, of course you're going to get annoyed, but there's a way to be tactful about it. There's a way to be maybe diplomatic about it, and tell him in a nicer way than rather just like putting him off. And
True.
sadly, you have to do that, whether it's a director, producer, engineers also, of course. Or like sometimes we also lose perspective because we're working on the same thing day in, day out. And we sometimes need the voiceover to tell us that, hey, you're selling a fairness cream, or you're selling this. Don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Don't get so deep into it. This maybe works. Maybe just like look at it from outside the box that you're in right now, and that's extremely important.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. That's a very different perspective to have and kind of just gives a very holistic perspective.
Absolutely.
The viewpoint changes. Because
Yeah,
otherwise, what happens is with voiceovers, it's like, a horse with blinkers. They're just thinking from their own angle and they're not really concerned with whether it's an engineer, whether it's a producer, whether it's a director, once they're on the mic, sometimes it happens, but and I've seen this, and I know you guys will agree that sometimes they just get obsessed with the way they are doing it, and that's just not landing, you know. And like you rightly said, there's a tarika, there's a way in which you can communicate, ki boss, अब बहुत हो गया, right? And this is why, like you said, people skills are extremely critical, yeah, because relationships are the foundation for any progress in any area of work. Neha, I would like to divert the question to you as well about how have you managed to stand out? Because I know you do more than 10 plus languages, and I've seen you grow up in the industry. Because I think because I've been working as a child artist, you've been working as a child artist. We've seen the evolution of the industry, and what
Right.
mattered then, today, other things are important. So can you please throw some light on that? What has helped you stand out?
See, I think as for any other industry, as for any other profession, I think persistence and just coming, showing up, doing your job no matter what. Of course, there are going to be some days that are difficult when you're doing languages, especially. You know, sometimes it doesn't work in your favor. Sometimes people could be difficult. Sometimes the language could be difficult. The script could be difficult. Challenges are going to keep coming and going. Just showing up every day, I think, is what I have. I feel has worked for me. I won't even say worked. I'd say just for any skill to for you to hone anything, you have to just do it every day, show up and commit to yourself and commit to the skill. You know, and
Beautiful.
yeah, and like some days are going to be hard, and some days we don't have work. Some days we're sitting and we're like, because our industry is such that a lot of it is dependent on other people needing you, although it's a
True.
freelance industry, although you are your own marzi ka malik, you're still, at least the ad industry, you still need someone to hire you for a job. So
Yeah.
that could also be difficult for you to cut through those days of slack and those uh, the tough days, the days where there's less work, the days there are too much work and you're trying to balance that out. I think it's just about breathing through your day and going through it however things come to you. I think that consistency and persistence and just telling yourself that, okay, today was a bad day, tomorrow will be better. I have to show up because I love what I do and nothing will supersede that. Like I have to show up and I have to do a good job. I mean, that's what I think.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Commitment to your craft. I think that is what
Yeah,
helps you stay the path because, like you rightly said, our industry is so volatile. There are good
exactly.
days and there are bad months.
Months, exactly.
Okay.
And for no fault of yours. For no fault of
Yeah,
yours. Yeah.
and I know people get scared and they call and ask stars to voiceover के लिए गई थी क्या पिछले हफ्ते में कोई job हुआ क्या? I understand, because dude, you got bills to pay, you got EMIs, everyone's running their household on this income. But I think that is where us being so old in this industry comes handy. कि boss, ये जो नीचे गया है ना ये ऊपर भी आएगा.
Super.
है ना? So stay the path, stay committed to your craft, and the way we value and respect the talent that God has given us, be it being an engineer, be it being an actor, be it a filmmaker, be it a voiceover artist. In the world of advertising, if you are consistent with what you do, like you said, you will
Yeah.
get the spotlight. You'll get the time
And
to like moment to shine.
like you mentioned a while ago, that whatever's yours will come to you. So
Exactly.
it's whatever you're meant to do will happen. So if it's not meant to be, it may not happen. And sometimes we fret about certain things and you just realize you let go. And in this industry, especially because it's not a 9 to 5 job, you can't predict what you're going to achieve the next day. You can't even predict what you're going to achieve a few hours prior. You know what I mean? Like, we could get a call 1 hour prior saying, hey, can you reach the studios? That's how it works for us. It's all last minute. So you can't go with a plan, but at the same time, I think the plan is to just stay true to yourself and your core and just be committed.
Thank you for sharing that perspective. Farzan, I have a question for you. Have you ever been rejected for a job, or has it ever happened कि voice bounce हो गया नहीं चाहिए? You know, ऐसा कभी हुआ है?
Um, Even if that has happened, I don't know. So they might have recorded it and then gone like, नहीं नहीं पसंद नहीं आ रहा है किसी और को बुलाओ.
Okay, I'll tell you why I'm asking you this question because see, I know Sneha and मेरे साथ हो चुका है. A million
Yeah.
times. Okay, both of us have. And the reason why I'm asking this question is because the perspective of how you look at when it happens is what keeps you on your path. राइट कि जब वो रिजेक्शन हो जाता है या ये भी हो चुका है कि हम माइक पे गए एंड देन सडनली डायरेक्टर से ये कैरेक्टर को ना दिस वॉइस इज नॉट सूटिंग दिस कैरेक्टर कैन वी गेट समबडी एल्स इंस्टेड
Yeah.
so it's never about you. It's about the
Yeah.
requirement at that point in time. That's why I asked you this question: ki if it does happen or if it has happened, how
I can
did
share
you
two
look?
perspectives. One is when I was a child, I remember this incident very clearly. I was in a dubbing studio and it was some kind of chewing gum or something like that. That was the ad. I was very young. And
Yes?
I had to voice a cartoon character, which was a live version of the chewing gum, with hands, legs, dancing, something like that. And they had a picture of that chewing gum character, like someone had drawn an image or something like that for us, as in for me as a voiceover artist, as a reference, saying you have to voice this character. I remember very clearly not being able to do a good job. They were not satisfied. I tried various versions of various modulations, but it was just not coming. I remember they saying, Parsan, what do you think this little caricature would sound like? But I don't think I got that job, to be honest. I must have said a few lines, but it didn't work out. I remember that. I don't know how I felt. This was a very, very long time ago. I'm sure I felt a little dejected about it. But there's nothing much you can do, according to me. There's not really much more that you can do if you've modulated your voice to your maximum. What else are you going to do? I think today things are much more different. There is way more engineering involved, and maybe they can do something after your recording to kind of suit things. I think this. I'm still talking about a time where those were still a little difficult to do. Even I believe the character I voiced Hum in Hum Tum also is not exactly my natural voice. They've played around with it a little bit in post production to just match it perfectly to what I think the director wanted. The second perspective I can give is this has definitely happened to me as an ad film producer, where we have got the samples approved. We try not to let this happen as much as possible because it's not right to the voiceover artist, it's not right to us, it's not right to the client either. But we've sent the samples, we've got it approved, and after the person has done one or two recordings, sent it to us, we've slapped it on and sent it ahead. They've said, oh, the voice is not working for some reason. So it, from a producer's point of view, it is a little embarrassing to go back to the voiceover artist and say, hey, it's not something that they are looking for. We might go with someone else. I thankfully had a very, very nice person on the other end who was very understanding, and we've worked with him many, many times in the past. So it's a very, very healthy work relationship we have. So it was all good. But I can totally understand if someone, and he's a veteran, he's been doing this for years. So I'm sure this is not the first time. Maybe if it was someone new, they would have reacted maybe a little negatively. I don't know what I would have done then, but it has happened. And we just try to make sure at our end that it happens as less as possible, because it's a couple of people stand to lose in the process, and we don't want that.
Very true. Very compassionate perspective, and thank you for sharing the filmmakers' way of looking at things because it's the other side again. You know, like for
Yeah.
voiceover, what you guys go through, since it's not
As
in
a
their first.
producer, I find myself, my heart lies with the artist because I've been on that side before. So usually
Ah,
producers can be a little ruthless, and I can't be that because I'm like, hey, I know what that guy is going through. Okay, so please let's not talk to him like this. Let's be nice to him. So I can't be that mean producer only.
you're a dream producer to work with this.
I hope all
All
the artists I work
voiceover.
with agree with you.
Thank you for that input, Varun. The industry has changed so much. Okay,
Yeah.
ever since you came into this line of work and you started off, you were assisting as a sound engineer and you were learning the ropes and you became a master of your skills, your area of work. Now you are the master of a domain. So you've risen through your dedication, your commitment, and alongside you have watched the industry change shape and form. So
Yeah.
what's your outlook on how it used to be before and how it stands today? Would you be able to identify some pluses and some minuses that are glaring, like that are staring us in our faces?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, honestly, right now, for me, I don't know about the rest of the industry. Ground zero has been COVID. Everything that we learned last 10 years, 12 years prior, you know, you learn so much from your seniors, your mentors, your senior engineers. You just see the way they work, you pick up on their nuances, the way they do things, the way they don't do certain things, more importantly. And you learn, you try to grow by learning from them. uh, but you have to keep learning. The day you stop learning is the day you get left behind. And that's precisely what COVID has taught us. We started the studio in Feb 2020, and there was a point where we had been in operations for a month and we had been shut for 2.5 months. We had to literally pivot overnight and sort of change the way we ran things. We had to switch up from the traditional model of people booking the studio, and now everything was remote. We had to move to softwares such as Source Connect and Stream.io, and we had to sort of elevate the studio that had just been built and sort of tech it up, to be able to cater to remote sessions. We've done sessions in COVID with clients in Austria and Europe, Australia. Uh, we did a session with, a really big company similar to Spotify in Paris via LA. And the only way that was possible was to sort of pivot the way we operated as a traditional recording studio. We had to reach out and look at new ways to operate. And that's one thing that COVID has taught us, that you have to keep evolving, you have to keep learning. Who knows what the landscape is going to be 10 years from now? Who knows what the shape of the industry is going to be? Today, I know, for example, if you look at Sneha, I know that she can give a professional sounding voiceover from her house, from her room. Honestly, I wouldn't have to like correct much with some of the recordings, most of the recordings that she would send me. uh, and that's where things have pivoted, that's where things have shifted. So then as a studio, how do you evolve from that? So that's one thing that we have learned. My one advice to anybody, any newcomer, would be that just keep learning, don't ever stop learning. And it could be anything, it doesn't have to be like specifics or technicalities of your craft, it could just be a generalization. Just try and keep evolving in whatever field or whatever role, whether it's as a voiceover. Just because you're doing voice for ads, don't just like put all your eggs into that basket. Explore audiobooks, explore film voices. Do a couple of jobs for free, maybe, to like try and branch out your revenue streams. Don't try and only stick to doing radio spots or only doing one line of audio voiceover work. And I guess my one bit would be just keep like evolving yourself and the way you look at different things.
I couldn't agree more. Without growth, there is no life. I mean, growth is life, right? If you're learning, you're evolving. And also with an industry like ours, which is so tremendously dynamic, everything that, like you said, pre-COVID and post-COVID, COVID was like a blessing in disguise for us all.
Yeah.
We hit really hard times, but then, like you said, pivot. Okay, keyword. We had to pivot, and all those who pivoted at that point in time have not just stayed; they've actually done so much better than they did earlier. So I think that's like perfectly put. Thank you for that input, for that way of explaining. And I think it's important, extremely important for people to remember. It doesn't matter if you're 30 years old in this industry. It doesn't matter. I mean, if we never arrived, we are never done. We
You're
are
never
always, yeah, we're always being tested, right? Like even for you, having such a high tech, great setup, you still have to push, like you said, new software. We had to
Yeah.
branch out and we had to open our mind, and that's so beautiful. Thank you, Varun, for sharing that. Sneha, what would you say? How you've seen the industry, and you see like a wider, in terms of time, like a wider range of decades. So what would you say? Maybe identify a plus and a minus if you can.
Uh, I think things have evolved really fast. And I actually resonate so much with Varun because I feel like the way at which things are moving with digitization and I think the people who have adapted through COVID, for example, are the guys who are afloat. So, and I think mostly our industry has been excellent at adapting. Like most people have figured how to function remotely. Most people are sort of well versed with it. We were all put in a situation overnight and we all had to take charge, right? So it was all beautiful. So from if you ask me from the yesteryears to now, I just think the fact that things are digital now, everything is quicker, jobs are all much faster, the kind of decision making is faster, versus earlier you would get to know well in advance about a job. We didn't have mobile phones in the early 2000s, it had just started. So we would always leave the house knowing what job we were going for in the day, because as school kids my mother would come and pick us up from the school, with me and
Yes.
Shravan. So we would have to know before leaving the house what we are doing. Now it is 5 minutes prior, your whole schedule can change. So I think just times are moving really quickly. And for us to just be on our toes and watch out and learn as much as we can, grasp as much as we can. So, and also that I think you come with the acceptance that everyone's learning. Even in the studio, in a session, the director could be younger than you, the sound engineer could be extremely senior but much younger than you. So it's just you're all collaborating, it's a team effort. It's yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I think has changed
Lovely.
since then. No, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I like that word that you used. I always believe life is not a competition, it's a collaboration. And the
Always,
fact that
always. I
you're
mean,
all,
you know how we function. We when we do radio spots, we have
yeah,
to have the same energies in the room. Otherwise, we won't be able to deliver.
exactly.
It's
And in fact,
it can't
I
be
do
my
remember,
voice versus yours.
yeah, exactly. It's never really versus, it's and.
It's
And I
and
think the day
always.
we all understand that it is voice and engineer, voice and producer, voice and filmmaker, the day we wake up to that realization, it will just melt into this beautiful symphony. It's like each
Exactly.
instrument plays an important role on stage. You cannot minimize the violin or the oboe. We are all collaborating together. And
Yeah.
if you have great relationships, right? You just spoke about relationships a while ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you have great people skills, you are respecting who you're working with. It's one of the best environments that you can ever be a part of. Yeah, where
Super
growth
healthy.
happens. Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, super healthy, and growth happens organically because you're willing, you're open, you're learning, and it's just
Yeah.
it's amazing. Thanks
Yeah.
for
There's
sharing that.
always
Uh,
going to be someone who's going to tell you, hey, maybe you should try this. And it's so nice because you feel like people are looking out for you. It happens to
yes,
us all the time. The engineer will suggest. Sometimes, I mean, it happens with Varun and me all the time. It happens with me and you all the time. Where we're like, hey, why don't you try this? Maybe this will work. Or, things like that. And we're always looking out for each other. It's a nice space to be in. It's so healthy
yeah,
and
and
it's so
in fact, like you said, we're watching out for each other. And I remember a couple of weeks ago, my throat was horrible. Okay, I lost my voice completely, and we were at a job together, Sneha and I, and there were two parts, and there was a larger one, there was a smaller one. So I'm like just shoving that larger part onto Sneha. You can do so, precision.
yeah,
She
it's
just
not.
said, yeah, babe, I get it, you're sounding terrible. So, and there was no
You
this, it's a blessing, okay? So it's a
Yeah,
blessing
yeah.
when you have the respect of the person that you work with.
Of course. Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is where the environment gets beautiful, and
Yeah.
that's how we grow together. Yeah? Farzan, what's your take as a filmmaker, a different perspective on how the industry has changed? What's your outlook?
You said our industry is dynamic. I'm saying in a technological driven industry where every day there are new softwares, new mics, new something, new computers, new sound cards, new everything, you can't afford to not change with the times. So definitely that's something that is 100% changing. What's changing for sure is that as I relate to the fact what Sneha said about going to dubbing studios from school directly. So knowing that you have to go for one at 4 or 5 in the evening, getting picked up from school, that's happened to me as well. One thing that is different is there are, as a producer, I have hired many voiceover artists over the years, and we've worked with them on several projects, and I still haven't personally met them. I still haven't sat in the same room with them. So I still don't know how they are, apart from the few conversations on the phone, and I know how they sound because they send us their work. So if I probably meet them at a mall or a theater, I might not recognize them also, because I don't know exactly how they look either. So so it's a little weird, but it's great because I actually don't have any preconceived notions about that person's voice. I only know them from how they sound on the mic. And because you're also experienced, you all know how different a person sounds on the mic versus how they can sound in person. So I don't have that baggage. I know them purely from the voice that they can portray on a mic, and sometimes that's really helpful.
Agree. And it's a very different way of looking at things. Like that, there was this live reality show called The Voice, that you wouldn't see the face of the person. And it's pretty similar to what you're saying, and actually not having any prejudices. So I
Yeah.
think the upside of not knowing them is this, like you said.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Possible only because of so much of technological advancements that
Yeah,
we are
yeah,
now.
yeah. As Varun said, like, I don't think it was even fathomable to be recording with someone in Paris, Austria. It's crazy. So that's how crazy things are. Like, I remember long time back, I think I was just around someone who was recording something, and they said, "Oh, we got a saxophone artist in LA to record something and send it to us." And I was really tiny, so I was like, "Wow, that's amazing! Like, how did you all manage to
Yeah.
do that?" And they were like, "Oh, we just spoke to him, and within 20 minutes he sent it to us." And here I'm like, one line sometimes takes an hour. How did he send an entire saxophone section of a song in 20 minutes? Like, it was really crazy at the time. But things are so different now. You can talk to them live while they're recording, and have them send it to you. So it's crazy.
In fact, there's a very tricky question that comes to my mind. I want to pick it up from the point that you just shared, that the saxophone piece gets here in 20 minutes, and sometimes we are harping on one line for 1 hour. To
Yeah.
hang. So, in my personal experience, at the risk of sounding like I'm going to badmouth our industry, but here's just another truth that I want to put out there. Sometimes my experience with clients abroad has been a lot more professional. You know what I'm saying? Like they'll stick to deadlines, they'll deliver on time, they'll pay on time, and you know, and somehow not everybody in our industry has done that. Some guys are like bang on, and there's no need to chase them, and they're so like, okay, this is our contract, and we'll stick to it. But do you really think that we are looking at better times when it comes to being more professional with each other? What do you think?
Are you asking me?
Yes, Pradhan.
Oh,
Or
I think we are going in a slightly negative direction on that question. I think things are not as professional as they used to be. As Sneha said, things are very last minute, and last minute is just not always good. It's really difficult to deal with last minute. Sometimes when you're a very planned or a meticulous person, that can be very difficult. So I
that's good.
don't think that. I also think when it comes to giving advice to people who are trying this out, I think there are people who now just don't know creatively what they want, and so the feedback can be so ambiguous when they come and say things like, "Yaar, maza nahi aa raha hai." Arey, what does that mean? How am I supposed to take creative feedback from that? What am I supposed to do to that? Even as a producer and even as an artist, what am I supposed to do with that feedback? So it's very difficult to deal with that. I don't think that behavior is professional at all. If you are in the creative field, you need to have some kind of creative opinion when some work has been assigned to you, or you need to give certain feedback to it. And you need to have that ability to give constructive feedback. So, my advice to people who are starting out is try and surround yourself with those people who give you that creative feedback if you want to improve on what you do, and let go of those people who say things like "maza nahi aa raha hai," because that's not helping you. That's just a way of putting you down without actually helping you. So it's not worth being around such people.
Thank you so much for that.
Sneha's face tells me that she knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm
I
just
was just
thinking,
going to say,
I wish we could pick and choose the people we get to be around. Like it's like,
actually, yeah, we can. I mean, see, I've stopped
yeah,
working with producers
to a
whose
great
opening
extent.
line is budget thoda kam hai.
No, of course, that you see that we can pick and choose because that discussion happens well in advance. I mean, at least before our session, right? How much money they
Correct,
have, what
correct.
our fee is, all of that. But this creativity thing where people are marinating in the studio in their own gyan, and then you're like, but what is it that you want? Because if they are able to communicate, mostly artists, fairly seasoned artists can deliver. It'll take some time here
Easily.
and there, but
Yeah, yeah.
you can gauge what they want, and then you can deliver plus minus yama. But they themselves don't know what they want, and that's very
Yeah.
tricky. Because and sometimes you will never like that take, and they'll go pick that take only or that tone, and you're like, okay, are you serious? But this girl looks so young, why are you getting me to dub a very old? And they're like, no, 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 this works. And you're like, okay, but sometimes you just have to let them, because it's their film, it's their money, they you suggest. But if they want it to sound a particular way, then you're like, okay. But it's it's tricky, so you can't choose, you know. Oh yeah.
It's good that we're having a laugh about this because honestly, when we have to chase other people to be professional, it does get on your nerves at this
Yeah,
point in time.
it does.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
the way we are, the way we function, and I think Varun comes from the same school of thought that we are as professional as we are with people abroad as well. तो वो client ऑस्ट्रिया से हो, पेरिस से हो या दिल्ली से हो, we'll still be the same level of professional, right, Varun?
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to generalize in that situation, because I have clients here who've paid me the day I've sent the invoice, and I'm like, man, I literally just sent the invoice today and you already paid. Thanks so much, but you could have taken some time. It's cool. And I have some clients who,
Share a
after
list of these clients with everybody.
and then on the other hand, I have clients after 8 months also, they're not answering calls, they're not responding to emails. And so the thing is, you work with somebody the first time, at least the way I go about it is, the first time that I work with someone, I work on blind trust. And if that trust is decimated, or if it doesn't work out the first time, I know the second time I need to take payment in advance, or I know I need to take payment immediately after the session, at the very least hold on to material. um, I don't think it's as easy for newcomers. uh, I have tons of today. I have a studio and I'm in a position where I can hold on to material, or I can say no to certain clients that I don't want to work with because of their poor ethics. But on the other hand, when I was starting off and I had just started charging, I had moved from an assistant to an engineer. Uh, and in that period, you want to try and do as much work as you can. So even though you know that the client is not that great of a paymaster, you still want to do work. You want to get more work out there. You want to get yourself out there. You want to start networking yourself. So I don't think it's that easy for a fresher or a newcomer to say no to work like that. They know they may or may not get paid. And after a point, they're like, huh, they'll actually end up settling for an amount, that they were probably due for like 10,000. They'll like, okay, fine, after 5 months, he's giving me 5,000 at least. Let's get it done. At least I've got something for my reel. um, I think that's not right from, obviously, it's obviously not right from the producer's part or from the production house's part. um, but as a fresher, they get stuck with it. So to generalize from that point of view, we take on production jobs, and I try to make it a point that before we've even received money from the client, the people we've worked with, the artists we've worked with, they are paid as soon as their job is done. And that's only fair. I am hiring them on a session basis. They are a session artist. The worst thing the client can tell me, or a production house can tell me, is, अरे अपने client ने हमको पैसा नहीं दिया है तो हम लोग नहीं दे सकते अभी. I'm not in a profit sharing with you. I'm not in a revenue share model with you. You hired me for a session. That is something that a lot of producers, production houses, I don't think understand. That is something that I have never faced working with a foreign production or somebody abroad. Um, but again, it's not fair to generalize. I know these problems exist abroad as well. Maybe we haven't worked as much or with as many people, but I think it's just, if you have to tell freshers, work once, trust blindly. And the old saying, like, once bitten twice shy. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
You can choose. The first time somebody makes a fool of you, it's on them. The second time they make a fool of you, so you can't uh, you can choose the second time.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's the way I'd approach it.
Thank
Trust
you,
blind.
guys. Thank you so much for being honest about this. Because see, the intention of asking you such a tricky question, it's not about highlighting the negative parts of our industry, as we all know there are negatives and positives in everything. But it is simply to bring to light कि भाई तुम हमारी इंडस्ट्री में कदम रखोगे ना thick somebody लेके आना.
This is
You
what,
know,
yeah, yeah. You have to. This is, see. If there's no point like mollycoddling or putting a blanket over this stuff.
yeah,
It's fact. This is what happens,
yeah,
right? Like as
yeah,
Plantain said, this is how he was a little diplomatic and tactful in the way he said this. Now, I'm not here to name names. Nobody's here to do that. But if a fresher's coming into the industry, they should know what they're getting into, right? You should know
exactly.
exactly like you said. They need to have thick skin. You can't get emotionally distressed because somebody's not paid you on your first job, right? You need to know that people will say they're going to pay in 2 months and they're going to 6 months later they're like, "Arey bill nahi bheja." Then you send the
Yeah.
bill, they're like check ready hai, aake leke jao. Then my guy's gone to check, "Arey check ready hai, lekin sign nahi kiya hai." Like you need to know these are things that are going to happen. Like literally, we've gone through that over 10 years. Like we could write a book. I think between the four of us, we could easily write a book on quotes. I think there's one
And
studio that has these quotes on the wall somewhere. Also, if I'm not mistaken, it's they're hilarious. But
And honestly, I think see, putting these things out there very honestly, straight from our heart, it kind of just empowers the newcomers. Because
yes,
at least now
exactly.
they know कि भाई ऐसा भी होता है, it's okay. It is
Yeah,
happening, but I know I can cope with it or I know how to handle it because now I've been given the information, you know.
yeah. The
So
hardest
thank you
thing
so much.
for the hardest thing for a
Sorry?
newcomer is always to say no. Like it's extremely hard for a
Of
newcomer
course.
to say no, and I think Darpan touched upon this subject in the previous discussion when he was having
I
about the
mean,
power of
especially
saying no to a job.
yeah, like you want to establish your credibility. There is no way you're going to say no for a project. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's completely understandable. And even especially for those जिनका घर चल रहा है अभी income से. So
yeah, yeah.
those multiple reasons why it can be difficult. But having said that, that drawing that balance or understanding ki where my boundary is, that I cannot be taken for a ride. I cannot be abused. You know, so I've got to establish a respectful position for myself. I think happens. You know, you just work in the industry for a bit and then you kind of, yeah. Thank you so much for that. Before I, close the session, a very, very important last question that I have for each one of you. Is Neha, you can take the lead on this. What's the one non-negotiable advice that you have for कि ये non-negotiable है, ये होना ही चाहिए? Would you say that is?
Um, I think lack of inhibition.
Lack of
I think,
inhibition.
yeah, I think that this is sort of reiterating what I said right at the beginning, but I feel like you just go. I remember one of the very senior artists had told me we were doing a job together. I think it was a radio spot or something. Sonia was telling me. I was standing like this with my hands behind. It's long back. Okay. And she said, leave your hands down, put your hands down, loosen up. Because that's where your body language, I mean, we're voice artists, but we're also voice actors.
Very true.
So I think that lack of inhibition is something that will take you through any job that, because like I said right at the beginning also, that it's not, you never know what you're going to go for, what your job is. You can't, not everyone's fortunate to pick and choose or ask prior, hey, what am I going to be dubbing for today? Which character, which this? Of course, in post COVID, people tend to know films get sent, all of that. But you're not very, you don't also tend to find out what you're going to, you just know how much time you're keeping for a job. So I think just going with a lot of acceptance of whatever comes my way, I'm going to deal with it. That lack of inhibition will just boost your performance as an artist. And there is no good voice, bad voice. I think we all know this right now. There's no, hey, she has a good voice. Of course, a good voice is great, but every voice is a voice and every voice could be required at any given point in time. So it just comes down to how much you can let yourself loose and be yourself on the mic and perform as a voice actor. I don't know if
Absolutely. I
that,
think
yeah, the,
that's really beautiful because when you're on the mic, you're not you, right? You're not Sneha.
yeah,
You're the
yeah,
character you're playing. And the
yeah.
more you get into that character, the more the character becomes whoever that personality is. Sneha doesn't exist anymore. And I think that is what makes you a brilliant artist. You know, so thank you for sharing that. That was really, really powerful. Pradhan, what's your perspective on this? What's your non-negotiable piece of advice?
I agree with Sneha. I feel that people need to realize there's no such thing as a good and a bad voice. I'm going to give this answer from a producer's point of view. It's about which voice matches which project or matches which part of that project, and that's exactly why we choose people the way we do. There's no good voice and bad voice, honestly. A small bit of advice to newcomers who I feel they just don't understand this section, is that show in your reel when you send it to us, show us the range that you can do, and understand that even in an ad, oh, I've done 2 3 ads, I'll send you the links to them, and they're all say pack shot videos or something like that. So show me that you can also do dialogues, you can also dub for some of the characters in the ad. Show me that you can also do a cartoon character, and it's so easy to do that nowadays. One bit of advice I think at least an upcoming voiceover artist should know is learn how to figure out the simplest of audio editing softwares, so that all these things you can kind of just do at home, record a piece at home, send it. If your sample isn't the best, then I know that you're not dedicated to what you're doing, because it's so easy to make a sample today with a lot of music options online, videos online. You just have to record a small bit, put it together, and send it out. So show me that range so that I can go like, huh, this guy's dedicated, not experienced. That's absolutely fine. Sometimes I know there are directors I work with who have the confidence that I'll get it out from this artist, bring him. But that person should show it in that reel that, oh, I can do this, I can do this slightly, I can show the modulation, stuff like that. So I think that's really, really important.
Such a brilliant point that you highlighted. You said, and I love these words. If your sample is not good enough, I can see you're not committed. I think this is a very critical point because that is evidence of to what extent you're willing to go.
Yeah.
If you say you want to work in this industry and
Yes.
people think, अरे YouTube पे वीडियो देख लिया उसके साथ माइनिंग कर ली हो गया काम कर
Yeah.
नहीं होता है.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a craft.
Agreed.
So thank you for that, Farzan. That was so empowering.
Thank you
God bless.
so much.
All right, Varun, what's your take on this? Non-negotiable advice.
Especially important for freshers, newcomers, and I think all of us probably would be just block out the noise. There's so many people that will say so many things. You can't do this, you can't do that, you're so young, how can you do this, how can you charge so much? Just block out the noise, focus on doing good work, focus on the positivity around you. Like any other industry, there is a lot of cynicism and pessimistic views on things, but there is also, if you look well enough, there is a lot of optimism. There are enough people who will give you great guidance, whichever role you play, whether you're a producer, voiceover, engineer. There are plenty of seniors, there are plenty of people who look out for you, who will guide you on the right path. Don't be scared of making mistakes. It's extremely important that you make them and learn from them, but the most important part is not to repeat them. Don't repeat them. Repeat your mistakes after 1 year, you're fine. Don't repeat your mistake for at least a year and you're good. But
Yeah,
don't be scared to make them. That's the most important thing. That's how you learn.
courage, courage. I think it ties in beautifully with what Sneha opened with.
Yeah.
No inhibition.
Yeah,
Be bold, be true to who you are. And thanks for saying that from an engineer's perspective as well, because it kind of makes your job easier.
yeah.
People
And
don't understand. Oh, please
yeah,
go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry to cut in, but one more really important thing I feel is that, again, no matter what role you're playing, always try to help your peers. Uh, don't try to put them down. If they've made a mistake, tell them that, hey, it's cool, you made a mistake, maybe do it like this next time. If they've done a good job, tell them they've done a good job. There's enough work to go around for everybody. It's not you have to work and he instead of him, it's you have to work with him. There's enough work for everybody. It doesn't have to be you or them or you. It should be healthy competition. It shouldn't be like competition where you're literally cutting each other's throats off, where you're undercutting with the producer, just by bad mouthing or whatever. Stuff like that happens. Especially stuff like this for a fresher can be really depressing. It can build anxiety. You will see other people on social media, posting stuff that, oh, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. And people will comment on a job you've done saying that, oh, it's rubbish, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. Going back to that, filter out the noise. But when it comes to yourself, try and like help others as much as possible. Don't try and put them down. Don't try and like uh, get to a level where things get conflicting, where you create conflict. um, it's like India Voice Fest is about building a community, so I try to like reciprocate that in as an engineer, whether it's with an engineers community or with my own assistants. I will be harsh on them, but at the end of the day, I will put my arm around them and be like, listen, you made this mistake today, don't make it again, and you're good. Just like learn. And hey, I want my assistants to do more work. I want other engineers to do work. I don't want it to be that, oh, I'm doing work and he's not doing work. So I
I
think
see.
that's one thing that maybe everybody can do a little bit more, is just like help your peers, and this
Absolutely.
industry can go a long way actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's not get the perspective of competition. Let's get the spirit of collaboration.
Yeah.
What a heartwarming statement to close today's session on. Varun, thank you so much for that. I've had an absolutely joyous time with the three of you. It's been a privilege and enlightening to me. Guys, thank you so very much. Darpan
Thank
is
you.
one producer who always stays on time. I have to say that.
See, sorry, I am sorry. Good things should never end, and this is one of those. This has been such a refreshing, insightful, beautiful beginning to today, and I just did not want this discussion to end. And I felt terrible, and I felt people are going to hate me for coming in and asking you guys that, and telling you guys that we've overshot the time a little bit. But guys, this has been, I think, such a fine, intellectual, insightful, empathetic, and a very wise discussion with all of you. And I really, loved a lot of the insights that you provided, and some of the key things, uh, like just cut the noise out. Varun, I think that was beautiful, very very important. How Parzan spoke about how technology, has become such a huge factor in our lives, and this is true, Parzan. Work with so many clients as a voice artist. It's been more than 10, 12 years. I've never met them. I haven't met them. And so many things about advertising, about the way the world of advertising is, and how it is. Yes, it is peculiar, and like they say, the bigger the reward, the bigger the risk. So I won't blame advertising for being the ruthless world it is, because the stakes are so high. And we could not have had a more rich, varied panel of professionals, right from a filmmaker, producer, director, to an engineer, to fantastic voices. I think we're very blessed to have had such a fantastic bumper opening of
Thank you so
India Voice
much.
Fest 2022. And I cannot thank you guys enough.
Such an honor. Thanks.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Bye.